Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome to the best damn movie-related show on the planet Earth, the John Campea Show, coming to you from right here on my YouTube channel. I am, of course, your host, John Campea, and it is an awesome honor and privilege, as it is every day, to have you, our international friends, gather around as we talk about our favorite things in the world, movies and movie news and all that sorts of good stuff. And if there's anybody who appreciates movies and movie news and all that sorts of good stuff, it's the good stuff himself, Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. Robert, how you doing today, sir?
John, today is a glorious morning, a morning I have awaited for a very long time.
I can't imagine why. I don't know what it is you're talking about. I'll tell you what, though, Rob, we heard that the thing was dropping this morning. Of course, we're talking about the Dune trailer, and we will get to the Dune trailer a little bit later. But I got word it's coming out at 9 this morning, Pacific Standard Time. It is now 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So I felt comfortable saying, okay, we'll make that the main thumbnail. We'll say that's the main topic. But 9 o'clock came and went, and there was still no Dune trailer.
I know.
And I'm like, how silly is today's episode going to look if we say our title thing, it doesn't drop? But then, of course, it did drop. And we will talk about it in just a few minutes. We do have a couple of other things to get to here, guys. And here's how this show runs for those of you who might just be joining us for the first time. We kind of break the show into two different halves. The first half of the show, we're going to cover all of our main topics. And in the second half of the show, we take your live comments and questions. Now, how do you get a live comment or question on the show? It's easy. Just use the tip link that's in the top of the description of this video, or enter it manually simply at streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll be getting your comment or question on the show if it's within reason and sort of on topic. And of course, you'll be supporting the show at the same time. And so, guys, before we get into our main topics, there is sort of one off the top that I feel like we need to discuss here because it speaks to something larger. Now, you guys, some of you may know that I put out a video, an editorial video a little while ago. That was called A Disney Star Wars Fan, because I'm a fan of the Disney Star Wars movies. I am, for the most part. A Disney Star Wars Fan's reasons on why The Rise of Skywalker did not work, because I really didn't like The Rise of Skywalker. And one of the main things that I said, one of the main culprits for me of The Rise of Skywalker not working, and for a lot of people it did work, and that's great. I'm just talking from my own perspective. But one of the reasons to me that did not work, and I made this as one of the big pinnacle things of the entire editorial, there was no plan. They clearly, you got a sense of the lack of plan when we got into The Last Jedi, but it really became clear there was no plan from the beginning once we got into The Rise of Skywalker. And that is one of my biggest criticisms, or maybe it's more fair to say the source of my criticism because that kind of became the underlying problem for all the other problems that kind of unfolded, was this lack of foundational plan right from the beginning. Anyway, to really drive that point home, John Boyega came out recently and criticized the fact that they didn't really have a plan for his character, Finn. And he said, well, they had their plan for Rey. They had their plan for Rey, to which I said, you remember on the show, Rob, I said, no, they did not. They clearly did not have their plan for Rey. And to drive that point a little bit further home, an interview came out, I believe she did it with Josh Gad. Daisy Ridley was talking to, I believe it was Josh Gad, who asked her specifically, hey, did you know about this turn they were going to do with Rey being a Palpatine? Did you know about this? And this was the first time that Daisy Ridley really gave us a clearer picture of just how unplanned this whole thing was. Daisy Ridley said the following: at the beginning, there was toying with the idea of an Obi-Wan connection. Because remember, there's some people speculating maybe there's an Obi-Wan connection. There would be a poeticness to that, I guess, if this Kenobi could save another Skywalker. Obi-Wan couldn't do it with Vader. He mentored Luke, and then a new Kenobi saves another Skywalker in Kylo. There could have been something poetic about that, but a little too contrived, but whatever. They were toying with the idea of an Obi-Wan connection. There was different versions, and then it really settled on she was no one. And that was JJ's big thing. When J.J. Abrams, when the Force Awakens was coming out, he did all these interviews about how important it was to him that Rey be nobody and all that kind of stuff. Well, now it turns out that was a lie, Rob, because he had He was saying, oh, no, it's absolutely foundationally important to me that she's no one. But you were just toying with the idea of making her a Kenobi. Anyway, let's finish what she said. And then it really went to she was no one. And then it came to episode 9, and JJ pitched me the film and was like, oh yeah, Palpatine's granddaughter. And I was like, awesome. And 2 weeks later, he was like, oh, now we're not sure. So he kept changing. Here's the key part, Rob. Even while filming, I wasn't sure what the answer was going to be. Let me read that again. This is how chaotic things can get if you don't start with a game plan. Even while filming, I wasn't sure what the answer was going to be. Okay. I'm not going to get like completely outraged and upset over this because, I mean, the foundational lack of a plan is something we've already talked about and that we already knew. That was clear. And you know, Rob, I've said before that much like with a professional sports team, if you don't have a plan, you might be able to get away with it for a little bit. Like if you got really good talent, you can get away with not having a plan for a while, but eventually that's going to catch up with you. If you don't have a solid game plan, all that kind of stuff, and what your team is and the direction of your team, eventually it will catch up with you. With the Force Awakens, I thought that movie was great. I thoroughly enjoyed The Force Awakens. I thought it was fantastic. I love it. But that's fine. Your first movie out of the gate, you might be able to cover up the fact that you don't have a long-term plan. As we got into The Last Jedi, which I like, there's certainly problems I have with it, but overall I like The Last Jedi, but it started to become a little bit apparent. Not so much with Rey, but when you start to look at some of the other characters, it started to become apparent there was no long-term plan here. Like, really? The idea was always to send Finn off to some casino planet hijinks? Really? And then once you got into the Rise of Skywalker, Rob, it just kind of blew the doors off that. It just kind of blew that all wide open. There was no plan. They were making this up, flying by the seat of their pants. And ultimately, you know, Rob, I've always said, Kathleen Kennedy, if there was a Hall of Fame, a Hollywood Hall of Fame, Kathleen Kennedy is a first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest producers ever in the history. Her resume stands up against any filmmaker in the history of the business. However, I've always said the number one issue with her being the head of Lucasfilm is her inability to do the number one job, which is to properly vet and make sure they're hiring directors and filmmakers that they are totally in sync with, understand the vision that they have, and they understand the vision that the filmmakers have, and go. They have dropped the ball on that again and again and again and again and again and again and again. And the number two big thing here is, hey, if you're going to start a new Star Wars trilogy, you've had years to prepare. Chart it out first. Chart it out. And they never did. And they never did. And now we've got stuff like even one of the stars of the movie saying, yeah, it was going to be kind of one thing, then they settled on this, and then they changed to that, and then even while we were on set, I wasn't even clear about what it was we were doing. And it's an unfortunate thing. And Rob, I think that's why, to me, like outside of The Force Awakens, which I thought was a really strong start, and I really enjoyed The Force Awakens a lot, it's not surprising then you look at, since they didn't have long-term planning, their one-shot movies were almost better than their trilogy movies outside of maybe The Force Awakens. When you look at Rogue One and what they did with that one-shot thing, you know, or I even thought, you and I both really like Solo. We both think Solo's a really fun, good movie. Again, didn't have to have a long-term plan, one-shot movies, but it's a frustrating thing to read. We already knew, but it's still frustrating to read in here. Rob, when you read comments like this, what's your first thoughts and your first reaction?
Well, that Disney as a corporate entity blew $1 billion in box office revenue by fucking it up. You know, I mean, I look at this and I think the most valuable entertainment franchise perhaps ever in the history of the medium is Star Wars. Now, it's not, you all you have to do is, here's what I don't understand. I understand Lord of the Rings was based on 3 previously existing books. But I think in terms of how to deal with the trilogy, a modern trilogy, if you know you're going to make that modern trilogy, and Disney knew they were going to at least make 3 Star Wars movies, you need to treat them like Lord of the Rings. You need to go in there and you have to have your 3 really solid scripts. Now, I would say after reading the Duel of the Fates script that Colin Trevorrow was going to do, they had a plan, and it worked. They had a really solid, I think I mean, Last Jedi had some wacky stuff happening in it, but a couple of things happened, like Carrie Fisher's death. But they made, I think, incredibly boneheaded mistakes at the corporate level, and they didn't concentrate on what their core business was. And their core business is to tell these Star Wars stories and make sure that they're good. Because I don't think a group of films has never had such global audience goodwill as Star Wars does. We're willing to put up with a lot. But I've never seen a movie that I think is as brain dead as The Rise of Skywalker, in terms of having all this mythology, 40 years of lore, how many books you could draw from, comics, the movies themselves, George Lucas, and you come up with something that is flying by the seat of your pants, the 9th film in this saga that you spent $4 billion on. I mean, I think it's an incredible failing of many people. First and foremost, J.J. Abrams. J.J. Abrams, in my mind, has messed up 5 science fiction films, 2 Star Trek movies. I'm not a Force Awakens fan. 2 Star Wars films and Super 8. And why he's entrusted with the keys to that kingdom, I'll never understand. Because The Rise of Skywalker is not a movie that actually has a story to it. There's really no plot. It rambles around from place to place. And there's kind of these situations. I don't understand, with all of the history of filmmaking in Hollywood, how that's what we wound up with. And, it's amazing that Disney and their filmmakers, and John, it was 5 years they were developing this trilogy. Force Awakens came out 5 years ago, 2015. And you'd think that this would be tight as a drum, that this would be the most planned, meticulous, well thought out trilogy in the history of motion pictures. And the fact that it wasn't, the fact that how do you not let your actors know what their characters are supposed to be doing while you're shooting?
Because they didn't know. I mean, they were still playing with it.
How do you go into a film and expect to have an actor give you the performance you want if the actor doesn't know? And how do you know what film you're making if you're making stuff up on the fly? I mean, it's mind-boggling to me that you have every resource in the world, every resource that possibly exists on planet Earth. You can get anybody to work on these movies, anybody to do anything that you want. And when you look at a lot of the art books, the Force Awakens art book, the Last Jedi art book, and the Rise of Skywalker art book, there's so many interesting concepts and cool things they could have done. Nope. Let's put the Death Star in. Well, okay, that might be that's a cool visual, but now you have an entire sequence.
Let's not turn the story into an entire referendum on what they did as the thing as a whole. But I mean, what I don't get here is, like, you're talking about J.J. Abrams. Why J.J. going into, and just so everybody knows, I'm on the opposite side coin here. I like the Star Trek films JJ did. I love Force Awakens, but why not just at least stay consistent with what you yourself set up in the first film? I mean, yeah. JJ told everybody, for instance, Raise a Nobody. They had already admitted he was never thinking of Palpatine right from the beginning. Okay, if he wanted to do something that was contrary to what Rian Johnson did in, say, the Rise of Skywalker, right? Or not the Rise of Skywalker, the Last Jedi. If he wanted to do something contrary to Rian Johnson in The Last Jedi, okay, that's one thing, fine. But to go against your own thing that you yourself set up in the first one on several levels, and it gives me, Rob, an image of the Lucasfilm head offices of, honestly, kind of like the way we perceived Warner Brothers DC outfit for a long time. Because for a long time, one of our big criticisms of Warner Brothers and DC was they were very, very reactionary. Like, oh, we're going to do this. Oh, wait a second, this happened. Change everything quick, and Lucasfilm kind of feels like they started to do that. Anyway, signs of hope. I mean, we saw that video they put out recently about the High Republic where they until before they started High Republic, they gathered together that huge writer's room and they charted everything out. So maybe they learned their lesson. But reading this is just, again, it's not surprising because we all knew they didn't have a plan. It just kind of really confirms it. And again, kind of flies in the face of John Boyega said, so, well, they totally knew what they were doing with Rey. No, turns out they didn't know what they were doing with any of you. So anyway, there's that. Question is, guys, what do you think about Daisy Ridley's comments? Jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's now move into our main topics today. And how do we select our main topics here on the John Campea Show? Well, it's really rather simple. You see, you guys come up with them by going anytime 24/7 over to www.thejohncampeashow.com/contact. Once you guys get there, you're going to see a form. Fill it out with your topic or question that you think could be a main topic here. Hit submit. It's totally free. And then maybe, just maybe, you might see your submission featured as a main topic here on the John Campea Show. With that down, let's get into main topic number 1. And our first main topic today gets submitted to us by Terrence Jacobs, who writes, "Hello, John and crew. I came across some new images from Mandalorian Season 2. Oh, yes, I saw that those dropped the other day. Very nice, by the way. I saw some new images from Mandalorian Season 2, and I thought they looked really good. What did you think about them, and do you think the pictures are an indication that a trailer for Season 2 is imminent? Kind of like how when a poster drops for a movie and a trailer usually drops the next day. Thanks for taking my questions. Bring on the filthy." All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, some new images. Our first real official looks at images for Mandalorian have come. Now, we're all excited about Mandalorian. Just keeping on the theme of Star Trek or Star Wars here. We're all excited about Mandalorian. Very, very excited. So you got our first few images. I'm going to tell you this. I heard a bunch of people talking about these Mandalorian images and getting all freaked out and getting all excited about these new Mandalorian images. And I looked at them and I thought, meh. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, okay, there's Mando in his armor with the child. Okay, I expected to see that. Then we've got Mando there with Cara Dune, and what was Carl Weathers' character's name again? I forget what Carl Weathers' character's name was. Anyway, Cara Dune and Carl Weathers, and which we expected to see. A nice little magazine cover, but it's the child. Okay, whatever. Then, oh, look, he's on a speeder bike. Okay, he's on a speeder bike. All right. But I mean, and again, there's Carl Weathers looking pretty badass, by the way. And then, of course, we got the Moff. We got the Moff there. Giancarlo Esposito, who's currently also killing it on The Boys Season 2. He's also killing it on The Boys Season 2. He's so good in that. All right, but I mean, it's just character posters. Look, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they should be giving the season away in the images. I'm just like, okay, it's nothing big and exciting to see here. To me, the more interesting question, part of the question, though, is the whole thing about now that EW has put out these images, can we kind of expect? Now, remember, television stuff and movies are different. And because you're right, normally what happens is once they release a poster, that's normally the harbinger of the trailer is about to drop, like in the next day or two, right? It's the release of a poster is like the Silver Surfer to the Galactus of the movie trailer. That's kind of how it normally goes. Could that be the case here? Well, it's possible because the show's coming out on October 30th, Rob. It's a little over a month and a half away. Yeah. So, I mean, we already knew the trailer is imminent. We know the trailer is imminent. It should be coming any time now, any day now. So, but I do expect, you know what? I'm going to go out on a limb and guess by the end of tomorrow, I think we're going to have, I'm just guessing. I'm not claiming any insider information here. I'm just taking a guess. My guess is by the end of tomorrow, we're going to have a Mandalorian Season 2 preview. I'm just a guess. I'm not saying I have sources telling me that. It's just a guess, but that's my guess. Rob, you had a chance to take a look at these images. What are your thoughts right now? And do you think we are like literally on the doorstep of finally getting a preview for Mandalorian Season 2?
Well, first of all, I feel like you did. I mean, I look at these images and I'm like, yeah, they're publicity shots of our main characters for Season 2. Okay. What they don't say is they don't reveal anything like beyond what we already know. We're getting the second season of The Mandalorian. But the question is, what is it about? Where do they go? Okay, there's a Tusken Raider on a bantha. Okay, but I'm more curious from an intellectual standpoint. I should be excited about this. Why? What is the story that they're delving into? What might I learn in season 2 of The Mandalorian? Now, they don't have to tell us this, but that's what gets me interested when you have an ongoing narrative and you're following characters. What excites me about finding out about these things is not merely that they're coming, because we already know that. It's what am I going to experience along with these characters that make it exciting for me personally as a viewer. And beyond these publicity pictures, we don't get any of that. Now, that said, I, like you, believe we're not that far. To me, 2 months. 2 months out is when you should be getting a trailer, and we're less than 2 months. The clock is ticking. You know, we're deep into September now, and I would think they'd want to kick it into high gear. So I don't know if I believe we're going to get it in the next 24 hours, but certainly soon, because they've got to rev up that. I mean, they want people to subscribe to Disney Plus. Why not? As soon as those dollars can start flowing in for those new subscribers who might have stopped subscribing when Mando season 1 was over, you know, they want to create that excitement, that buzz.
Yeah, and again, it's a little different in television than it is with movies, and so you want to approach it. And I think my guess is, Rob, that, you know, we talked sometimes about how Godzilla King of the Monsters kind of blew their load a little bit early by really starting a big heavy marketing push a year in advance. I have a feeling with television, it's even a much smaller window that is easily come and gone. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, I kind of agree with you. I think they probably should have put some preview material out by now already, but I don't think they're in red zone yet. I still think it's just going to come out like in the next 48 hours. I really do, but we'll have to see. But they have been giving us a little bit of information. This comes to us from John Favreau, who is talking about the project. He says, the new season is about introducing a larger story in the world. The stories become less isolated. Each episode has its own flavor, and hopefully we're bringing a lot more scope to the show. Everything gets bigger, the stakes get higher, but also the personal story between the child and the Mandalorian develops in a way that I think people will enjoy. That's got to stay the heart of the show. Like, to me, that's got to stay the heart of the show. As we introduce other characters, there are opportunities to follow different storylines. The world was really captivated by Game of Thrones and how that evolved as the characters followed different storylines. That's very appealing to me as an audience member, John Favreau. Now, Rob, what that tells me, at least what that kind of hints to me, that last part he says there, the world was really captivated by following different storylines, by how Game of Thrones would have different storylines, and that captivated the audience. See, this is what I'm interpreting from that. Because in Game of Thrones, they didn't just have the one story. Like, you had, I don't know. You had, Drago off doing, with his thing with the Dothraki, and you also had, I name any one of the other characters running around doing their own things, while another group of characters are totally having their own thing, while Jon Snow was over here doing that, and all that kind of stuff was going on. What I'm interpreting, and this is just an interpretation of what John Favreau is saying, is that I think we're going to see like episodes where we're with Mando and the child, and then we cut away to Cara Dune off on another planet doing something different. And I think they're going to branch out a little bit, and we're going to be following multiple storylines at the same time. That sounds really cool to me, although a little precarious, being that these are generally half-hour kind of episodes. But I don't know. What do you interpret from that? What do you think he means by that?
Well, I think you're on absolutely correct as well on this one, because, the Mandalorian was, let's face it, a risk. It might not seem like it was a risk, but it was. It was a risk at the time. The first live action Star Wars show dealing with a period of time we hadn't really seen before, bringing a character like the Mandalorian that we didn't know to light. So that was a risk. Well, now, rather than repeat the same format, now they can expand those stories, because we know who Cara Dune is. We know the Moff character that Giancarlo Esposito plays. We know a lot of the mythology, and I think it's time to expand the lore and expand the characters. So if you cut away and you follow Cara Dune for half of an episode, people are going to be with you. they like that character. As a matter of fact, all the characters that have been introduced, I think, add to the tapestry of the Star Wars universe. And why wouldn't you, with modern storytelling the way it is, and it's not like they're relegated, the Mandalorian was the wildly different episode lengths. It's not like everyone was 28 minutes. Sometimes one was longer and sometimes one was shorter. And I don't think Disney Plus is going to have a problem if John Favreau's like, I don't suppose, like, we need 5 more minutes to tell this story about Cara Dune. I don't think anyone's going to go, no, John, you can't. Go right ahead. I mean, they've proven that they've taken the world by storm. And if you want to do a whole backstory episode about where Baby Yoda came from, and there is no Mandalorian in that episode, people will watch it. People will watch the Baby Yoda episode.
People would watch 45 minutes of Baby Yoda in his little cradle playing with a metal ball. I mean, they would watch 45 minutes of that. They absolutely would. Question is for you guys. What do you think about the images that we've seen? How excited are you for Mandalorian Season 2? Are you, like me, expecting the first preview like any minute now? Or do you think they might actually wait another couple of weeks? That's totally reasonable too. Jump down to the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to main topic number 2. And our second main topic today gets submitted to us by Eli M. And Eli M writes, the 2006 Sacha Baron Cohen movie Borat is flat out one of my all-time favorite movies and also one of the funniest I've ever seen. Did you see the reports that Cohen has secretly already shot and edited a sequel that nobody knew about? Apparently, he's already screened it for some people as well. So my question is, how excited are you for a Borat 2? And do you think it can make the same kind of impact that the first film had? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yeah, I started seeing headlines and tweets coming in that Sacha Baron Cohen has actually shot a Borat 2 and has actually already started screening it for some people. It's crazy to me. Let me give you a little bit of context on my thoughts about Borat. The first movie, the original Borat, and Make Benefit for Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan, whatever the actual full title was, to me was one of the most unique and enjoyable movie-going experiences I've ever had. Rob, I've only ever given a perfect, when I used to give numerical scores to movies, which I haven't done for a couple of years now, but when I used to, I think there's only like 7 or 8, maybe 9 films that I ever gave a perfect 10 out of 10 to when I was actually doing a review of them. Borat was one of them. To me, the just pure absolute hilarity, but there was a genius to that movie of the way that Sacha Baron Cohen as this character Borat just held up a mirror, as ugly as it was at times, held up a mirror to our society and to our culture. And said, here, look at yourselves. And there was something powerful in that and moving while I was laughing my ass off. Her vagine was like wizard's sleeve. One of the greatest lines in any movie ever. Now, my second viewing of it, though, I got to say my second viewing of it was much less enthusiastic because I had seen it, like the shock of that and everything had worn off. So it's not a movie that replayed well to me, but my first viewing of Borat, like honestly, seriously, one of the most unique in the mixture of absolutely crying at hilarity, but also being very moved in many ways by this reflection of our society that he was holding up this mirror to. It's a beautiful combination. I wasn't a big fan of his other stuff. Like, what's the one other character? He did a standalone movie for one of his other characters that does the Gino or whatever the name of the character was. I can't remember what it was.
The fashionista.
Yeah, that one didn't work for me as well. I wasn't a big fan of The Dictator, although it does have its moments. There are a few moments in The Dictator that is like, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. So you would think with the amount that I enjoy that first Borat, you think I'd be all about this. And I will admit, I'm very curious. I am very, very curious for a lot of different reasons. My one kind of apprehension about it is that Borat worked perfectly because it catches you so by surprise. Like that whole first movie just was constantly catching me by surprise. And I think that's why when I went in to watch it the second and third time, it didn't have nearly the same impact on me because the surprise of it, the shock of it, the uniqueness of it played. And my worry here, Rob, and maybe it's a baseless worry, my worry here going into a Borat 2, if that is indeed all these reports are correct, is that the whole second one might just feel that way to me. That's like, I've already been surprised and shocked by Borat. I now know what to expect from Borat. But I don't know, maybe not. Again, that first one was like one of the best movie-going experiences I ever had. But anyway, Rob, you hear about all this, the prospects of a Borat 2 and the fact that he was able to pull it off, kind of making it secretly. What's your take on this?
Well, look, I, like you, watching Borat for the first time was a singular experience. I mean,
that's a good way to put it. It's a singular experience.
It was pretty crazy. And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I liked the character. I'm a huge fan of Sacha Baron Cohen's comedy. I like the Ali G show. I watch that all the time. And it's great to see his evolution. And even when he's in stuff like Talladega Nights, I think he's an incredible performer. So I would hope and I would think that, especially with sort of the political minded shows he's been doing, the interview shows and things like that, I think if he's doing a new Borat movie, he must have a good take on it, especially in the times we're living in now, which is the crazy comes on a daily basis. So I can only imagine what he has up his sleeve for this movie. I think he probably has a vision for it. And now that everybody's kind of in on the joke and knows who Borat is, he couldn't rely on what he used to rely on to make the character work. So I'm curious to see what he has cooking. So I'm excited for it. I read this, I think yesterday it came out or something, and I'm like, well, that's interesting. Like, how does Sacha Baron Cohen get away with shooting a secret Borat movie? Doesn't everyone know who Borat is? Like, how do you do that? And so I'm excited just to see how it works. And I'm hoping that he has a great take on it. So just another crazy, wonderful gift we're getting in these crazy times. So bring it on.
All right, guys, question is, what do you think about this? I mean, listen, I have some pessimism because, again, I kind of feel like I'm worried that maybe the Borat thing has played out for me personally, but I'd be lying if I didn't tell you I was totally fascinated by this. I do like Sacha Baron Cohen very much. What are you thinking about this? Jump down into the comments section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys. With that down, let's move on to our third and final main topic today. And our third and final main topic today gets submitted to us by Maxie S., who writes, "Hey, JC and crew." Hello there, Maxie. "Today is the day. The trailer for my and your most anticipated film, still coming in 2020, fingers crossed, Denis Villeneuve's adaptation of Dune, has just dropped." Now, to be fair, Maxie actually sent in this email early, anticipating that by the time the show started, it will have dropped. Did it hype you up even more than you were, or did it let you down? And how do you think it conveyed what Dune is about to the mainstream audience that may not be familiar with the book or its previous adaptations? All right, thanks a lot for sending that in, man. And yes, finally, today, the day that we've been waiting for, the first official trailer for what is currently my most anticipated film of the year, Denis Villeneuve's Dune, dropped. I had a chance to watch it. You've had a chance to watch it. Here are my thoughts. I'm not excited about it. I'm not excited about it. Now, don't get me wrong. Don't misinterpret me. It is still by far my most anticipated film of the year. I think this movie is going to be brilliant and awesome and fantastic. I totally do. I was not overjoyed by the trailer. And here's why. There's a couple of things that just didn't, there's a couple of things that worked. There's a few things that worked. I felt like they gave a really, one of the things, Rob, that I loved about the opening of the first Lord of the Rings film and and even the Hobbit films from the trailers from the Lord of the Rings films, it really felt like they were taking you to the Shire, right? One of the things that really jumped out at me about this trailer was, I really feel like they captured Arrakis. I really feel like they captured that environment. That was great. I think Paul is going to be, Timothée Chalamet, I think he's going to nail this character. I really do. I think he's going to be fantastic in it. I think there are some images. The worm at the end. Come on. The worm was glorious. And I'm not even talking about when it's first come. I mean, that last iconic shot as it's kind of hovering there over them at the end. It's just beautiful, gorgeous. But Rob, I'd be lying to you if I didn't tell you that I suddenly got kind of nervous and afraid that they are going to botch the marketing campaign on this the way they did for Blade Runner 2049. Now, the primary mistake I feel like they made with the Blade Runner 2049 marketing campaign was they never told the audience what the movie was even about. Like, you can't do that. I felt like this first trailer gave you a general idea what the movie was about. So at least it did that. But I tweeted about this and I said, my fear about this trailer is that while people who know Dune are going to get really excited about it because they're going to recognize and identify with a lot of stuff, I feel like they were trying to be too artistic with the trailer. And I don't know that, like, my mom, who's not by standard a big Dune fan to start with or anything like that, I'm not sure this is the type of trailer that is going to appeal to a lot of the general mass audience that, hasn't already been looking forward to Dune. I honestly thought, while I get the homage kind of paid by the music choice in this trailer, it did not fit the trailer. That music choice, I don't care what anybody says. I get it. There was an artistic reason for doing it. There was an homage reason for doing it, going all the way back to the other Dune. I get it. I understand that. I do. But that doesn't change. It didn't fit the trailer for me. Like, it really would have been better served. Forgive me for sounding kind of stereotypical. It would have been better served if they went like with a Hans Zimmer style. Didn't have to be Hans Zimmer himself, but like something really epic feeling, like sci-fi kind of score to play along with that to enhance the images we were seeing. I'm just worried that for so many people who are like on the fence about Dune because they don't know Dune, they don't understand Dune, I don't know that this is the trailer that's going to get everybody on board with it. Even though there are images in there that really are going to excite people like you and me. And there were a number of things that really did excite me. But overall, I thought the trailer was okay. I'm just really worried they're not going to appeal to enough people with this approach, this philosophy to a marketing campaign. But I don't know. I still think it's going to be a fantastic movie. It's Denis Villeneuve, just like I loved Blade Runner 2049. I have no doubts in this film. I just wasn't big on the trailer. It was okay. It wasn't terrible. I just wasn't big on it the way I wanted to be big on it. Anyway, Rob, I know you have anxiously awaited the arrival of this trailer. And I know you really wanted to see I remember I was talking, you said, you just got to show me the worm, man. Just show me the worm. What were your impressions of this Dune trailer?
Well, on one hand, I have to say I loved this trailer. I've read the script for the film. Incredible script, incredible adaptation of the book. I love the casting. I love how everything they've done in the movie, the tone of it, all of that, great. And it was so cool to see all of this stuff. But like you said, on the other hand, John, I think everything you said about marketing this film is absolutely correct. Because this was a trailer that was directed at me. It was a trailer that was directed at somebody who grew up reading the books, who's loved Dune, who's watched the other incarnations of Dune. It's been a TV miniseries. It's been a movie before. And I think what this trailer was missing is exactly what you said. For the people who are the faithful, very cool. But if you don't know anything about Dune, and we now live in a post Lord of the Rings, post Game of Thrones, post Breaking Bad, shows that have political machinations and chess moves as part of their DNA, I don't think they told us that, like you said with Blade Runner 2049 is a perfect example. It feels like this marketing is being done to the people that already love this. The problem is Blade Runner was not a hit. It's never been a hit movie. It's a cult movie. But people that work in the industry think, ooh, Blade Runner, it's so revered. Most people just don't know. And with Dune, yeah, it's a cult science fiction novel that came out in 1965, and it's been adapted before. But most of the movie-going audience, they don't know anything. They look at all these people, and what is this even about? Does Dune take place in Morocco? You know, you don't even see space in this movie, you know, and it's like, where is this thing? What is this movie about? Who are these people? Is this a biblical epic? Is this a fantasy epic? What is this? And they need to lay into it. They need to tell you that this is about a feud, a blood feud with these warring families that go back decades, centuries even. And this is when this blood feud comes to a head, you know, and they really need to lean into that. And in the midst of this, a savior will arise. And all. They don't. I mean, I have to say that they're trying to be too clever, man. You got to make 8-year-olds excited about this movie, not college professors. And I think you're absolutely right. The music choice. The trailer was dreamy and cool, and man, I tell you, I loved it. I got blood flowing to my loins, which is what I want from a trailer. You know, I want to be excited, but I'm also thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, well, get me excited about what this movie's actually about, and if nothing else, tell me about 2 mighty warrior tribes, you know, that are going to war for the soul of the galaxy or whatever, and you're just like. Okay, but man, I'll tell you this. Boy, does this movie look good. All the imagery, the design work, they really leaned into the brutalist work. Although I will say, in a way, John, there's one thing that kind of disappoints me overall. I grew up looking at the artwork of people like Christopher Foss or the stuff that was done for Jodorowsky's Dune.
Right.
And there is a monotone quality to all of the design and the look of this movie. You know, I feel like, okay,
Which
Arrakis
kind of highlights Arrakis itself, right? Like it kind of is a reflection of Arrakis itself.
And even on Caladan, we see the Caladan, it's kind of dreary. And I worry that maybe the overall palette that they have chosen isn't as exciting, I guess is the word. You know, but I don't know. I mean, I'll reserve judgment. But what I saw, dude, as a literary sci-fi fan, dude, I'm stoked.
I mean, that's the thing. There were so many things in it that I knew would appeal to you and certainly did appeal to me. I just kind of felt like, you know, the first trailer, that's the one that kind of sets the tone, you know? And as much as fans, we normally want the stuff targeted at us. But we talked about this about a good month ago, Rob. We talked about what strategy will Warner Brothers take in their marketing of Dune. And you and I both kind of said they need to not target us because we're there. We're there. You and I are going to be there no matter what.
No matter what.
So don't target us in the marketing. Target everybody else because we want this thing to be $1 billion hit. So target the general audience. And I think if they had highlighted a number of the things that you were talking about, you know, this blood feud, you know, the Atreides, the Harkonnen, you know, the thing about the Emperor, like if they had targeted some of that stuff, and again, a little more stereotypical, I admit, but like some epic kind of score music to it rather than this kind of odd, you know, tip of the hat to the other Dune about, well, would they have used Pink Floyd or whatever? It just felt like their aim was off. I just felt like their aim was off. Let me rephrase. They were aiming at the wrong thing. I felt like this trailer was aiming at the wrong thing. Well, but again, I still think this movie is going to be bonkers good. Like bonkers
I also feel that movie marketing has become really lazy. Everybody's cannibalizing off everybody else's campaigns. A movie like Dune needs a campaign that should be as unique as the movie. And I feel that we were watching a pastiche of like 20 different trailers I'd seen over the years. And it's like, why does every movie have to be marketed the same way? You're paying marketing people that have marketing backgrounds. Come up with something innovative. Come up with something we haven't seen before. Tell us things that we don't know. I feel like, again, with Blade Runner 2049, they're just leaning into the fact that, remember Blade Runner, which came out in 1982? Well, I mean, film fans do, but, you know, my mom, I don't know what that is. She's 81 years old. I mean, not that she was your target audience, but, you know, with this movie, I just feel like, how do you get the average voter that's going to turn out to the polls next month to want to go see this movie. You know, you got to give him or her some real action, some real punch, not this sort of dreamy, philosophical, I don't know what's happening, and then give me a few bro lines. How can you not hear from Baron Harkonnen? How can you not see Stellan Skarsgård you see him rise up out of the water?
Well,
people are like,
didn't we hear him say kill him? Didn't he say that? Wasn't that his like one line?
I need show his face where he's giving a soliloquy. He's got great lines in the script, and he's grotesque and insane. I mean, show me that. You know, show me something where you're going, oh my God. Well, and now I feel like I was watching kind of an ASMR Dune video. Look at Dune. ASMR. It's coming. It's going to make you feel good. Go to Arrakis. I mean, okay. No, I want to be like, anyway.
But I wanted to ask everybody else. So I decided to make that the topic of today's question of the day. And I asked you guys, now that you've seen Dune, the trailer, what has it done for you? Because we always talk about on the show, the job of a trailer is to take your excitement level, no matter how low it is or how high it already is, and bump it up a couple of notches. That's the job of a trailer. So I asked you guys, this is the question of the day. This is up on the community tab of the YouTube channel. And we asked question of the day, the Dune trailers arrived. What did it do for you? And right now, a little over 2,000 of you guys have voted. 60% of you, which is not the number you want to see, but 60% of you are saying it made you more excited for the movie. 8% of you are actually saying it made you less excited for the movie. And a full 32% are saying, I'm still at the same level of excitement as I was before. And I got to admit, that's me. But now I'm already ridiculously excited for this movie. So, I mean, not much higher to go. But yeah, this trailer didn't bump it up a couple of notches for me. And I'm not sure how many average fans it will, but maybe it will, maybe it won't. Anyway, guys, this is up on the community tab of my YouTube channel. Go in there and cast your vote. We're going to keep that poll up there and let us know. What did it do for you? Did it make you more excited for the movie? Less excited? Or did it just not move the needle at all and you're still exactly where you were before? Go on over there. And of course, guys, jump down into the comment section below and let us know your thoughts. All right, guys, with all of that down and out of the way, we're now going to move on to our live comments and questions part of the show. Once again, if you want to get in a live comment or question, again, if you keep it within reason and stay on target, simply use the tip link that's at the top line of the description of the video, or you can enter it manually, streamelements.com/movieblogtv/tip. You'll, of course, be getting your question or comment on the show, and you'll be supporting the show at the same time. So it is a win-win. All right. With that, let's get over to it. And the first question we're going to start off with here comes to us from Brandon, who writes, only people who have seen The Boys Season 2 will understand. What if I say did this? Bam. Oh my God. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not going to talk about it. But Rob, that was clearly an awesome, awesome scene. What if I say did this? I was rolling on the ground. I was laughing so hard. And I think Anne almost spilt her drink when we saw it. But you know the shot we're talking about, yes?
I'm wondering, do I? Maybe we should clarify it.
No, we shouldn't. We should not clarify it. But that was a brilliant, brilliant, brilliant scene. All right, next up, let's go to Willow, who writes, the one death in James Gunn's Suicide Squad that will really shock me is Harley Quinn. Oh, I agree. I wouldn't be quick to write off Polka Dot Man, though. I wouldn't be surprised if he survives to the end and actually saves the day. Listen, if it was any other director other than James Gunn, automatic. Polka Dot Man's the one that dies. But being James Gunn, nah, he may just love Polka Dot Man, keep him around. Seriously, it could be anybody. I mean, seriously, Rob, Flag could die in this. I think anybody's... I just don't see... While I believe James Gunn would do something as ballsy as killing off a Harley Quinn, no way Warner Brothers lets him do that, though. Right. No way. Like, what would you set the odds of them actually killing off Harley Quinn in this Suicide Squad?
0.
Absolute 0.
The odds are 0, John. That would be 0.
All right, let's move on. I agree. Matsif Jada writes, one day there will come a time when there are enough great movies and TV content to last a person's lifetime, meaning one could spend their whole life watching just good movies and TV, and that's pretty swell. I'm going to tell you what, Matsif, all you got to do is go to the AFI Top 100 to see there's probably enough, and that's just the top 100. I would probably argue that there's probably enough good stuff out there existing already.
Yeah, we're already there, man.
Yeah, I agree, Rob. I think we're already there. I think that's just a a place that we're at right now, and it's only going to get worse. I mean, we may even get to a day, Rob, where there's enough great stuff coming out where, I mean, look, I think we're already at a point now, even in the midst of pandemic, there's so much great stuff coming out, you can't possibly keep up with it all.
No.
I mean, Ann and I watched the latest episode of Lovecraft Country yesterday. I loved the first episode of that. I was kind of on the fence about jumping off the show as a result of the second episode. I wasn't a fan of the second episode, but episodes 3 and 4 are like awesome. I'm all in on this show now. I'm just curious, what are you watching Lovecraft Country right now, or what is your current thing you're watching at the moment?
You know what? I have not watched Lovecraft Country, but I did watch the first episode of Raised by Wolves. So, because it was on, it's available for free, and I'm like, okay, I'm in. I've got to get HBO Max. I mean, I have to get it. And Lovecraft Country, I'm dying to see it.
I'll let you know, I got HBO Max.
Yeah, well, I would imagine.
But I wasn't going to, because, they still haven't put it on Roku. So I got a deal where I was able to put it on my iPad.
Yeah.
So I've got it, and so I watched all 3 episodes of Raised by Wolves. I'm not in love with that show yet. I'm not in love with it, but it certainly has me. For now, it certainly has me where I'm like, I'm really intrigued.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to the next episode, So it's going to be interesting to see where they go with that. All right, next up, we've got Ben Rayner writes, one of two. His John, probably meant hi, John. Hi, John. I've had an interesting journey with Tenet. First trailer got me hyped. Then COVID happened and theaters got shut down. Nolan's insistence of putting out this summer is a turnoff for me. I'm high risk for the virus, so I'm not rushing. To theaters. That's understandable. Now with the mixed reviews and the complaining of noise mixing makes me want to wait for VOD. I'm just a little over Nolan. He makes good and solid movies to me. It seems he cares more about putting the film out rather than health risk. I got to tell you, Ben, I'm going to be honest with you. I've got a friend of mine that I respect very, very much. Somebody who works in this industry that I respect very, very, very much. And they have a similar kind of take on you. They're kind of turned off by Nolan and saying, oh, he cares more about putting out his movie than he does about risking people's health. And I got to say, I disagree with that statement hugely. Christopher Nolan releasing a movie doesn't do anything to risk anybody's health. Only you can risk your health. Only you can do that. Right? And so if you are a person who decides to, wait to watch it later, then Christopher Nolan has done nothing to risk your health. If you are somebody that you want to make a choice to go out to a theater and you determine if you think your local theater is taking the proper and strict enough safety procedures to make people feel safe and blah, 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 and you make that choice, then that's your choice. And you are making your choice. Your choice is, hey, I'm at high risk for this virus, so I'm choosing not to go and participate in that. You're looking after yourself. That's good. You're taking responsibility. But I don't in any way, I reject wholeheartedly this notion, and I had this debate with this friend of mine the other day. I reject wholeheartedly this notion that somehow Christopher Nolan is putting you at risk. Christopher Nolan isn't doing anything. He's putting out his movie. If you want to see it, you can. If you don't want to see it, you don't have to. And you can wait to see it. Just like you'd be waiting to see it if he didn't release it. Right? Because in saying he shouldn't have released it, well, you're saying, oh, we should wait to see his movie. Okay. Well, if he does release it, that doesn't take away anybody's option to wait to see it. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't change a thing. So I gotta say, I really do disagree with that sentiment that somehow like Christopher Nolan is putting anybody at risk. No, he's not. He's putting out a movie. If you choose to want to go see it, just like if you choose to want to go to a restaurant and eat, if you choose to go into a grocery store to go shopping, if you choose to do that, that's a choice you can make. But I don't see that at all of him putting anybody at risk. I think that is a fake, a false argument. I don't think it holds any water. Again, I'm not saying people should drop what they're doing and rush out and see Tenet. I haven't. But I just don't see that equivalence. Rob, what's your take on all that?
Well, I mean, look, obviously he was pushing for a theatrical release. And like you said, you know, his job is to make movies and sell them. And, you know, if movie theaters feel safe about opening, if they Christopher Nolan just makes the movies. You know, it's not like he's opening the theaters. And like you pointed out, you had a really good experience when you went to the AMC theater in Vegas. You felt safe. And I think that you can't blame him. You have to. It's up to the movie studios themselves and the theaters to do that. And you know, it's like everything else. I've been going to the grocery store since the beginning of this pandemic. The grocery store that I go to has people outside hitting you with hand sanitizers. They're cleaning the carts. They've taken all kinds of social distancing precautions, and I've always worn a mask. I've never felt unsafe going to the grocery store, and I certainly don't blame people that are bringing, say, produce to buy. You know, I'm not blaming somebody. You put milk in the grocery store, so I'm going after that milk company for not thinking about my safety. So I think you're right about that. No one's twisting anyone's arm, and I think, look, if people are safe and they're showing this kind of detail to safety, I mean, why not? We haven't seen, I mean, unless a movie theater is shown as being a super spreader incubator, which we haven't seen yet, then I don't know.
All right, let's move on here. Next up, thanks for writing that in, Ben. All right, Ryan Lohner writes, one more actor from multiple comic book movies. Tilda Swinton was in Doctor Strange, Constantine. Oh, that's right, Constantine. And Snowpiercer. See, here's the thing. I don't count Snowpiercer. Like, I don't count Snowpiercer or other things that are like kind of like one shot, not necessarily one shot, but like graphic novels. I think when people are talking about the idea of somebody's in multiple comic book movies, we're talking about the traditional idea of a comic book movie, like your Supermans, your Iron Mans, your things like that. So I don't know that I count that, but Constantine fits. Constantine fits. It's not one of, I still won't count her as 3, but that's another one to add to the 2 pile, Ryan. That's a good observation on that. My brain fried halfway writes, I saw Tenet this weekend, and brah, there's no way in hell people understood 100% that movie from a first viewing. LOL. I want to watch it again, but I'm going to wait till it comes digitally with subtitles. Love the show. Hashtag put closed captions in Nolan's movies. Rob, this is an ongoing thing. We're hearing from people about, and it's not a new thing, but I'm hearing from a lot of people saying they couldn't understand half the dialogue in Tenet, that some people are complaining that their ears are bleeding because some points are just too loud. I think that's a theater by theater basis, how loud they set their volume levels. But this audio of his mixing, this continues to be in a stellar career. One of the little, ink blots on Christopher Nolan's that sometimes he just has this weird sense of how he wants to mix things. Have you heard any other people talking about this issue with Tenet?
Oh, yeah, no, and it's definitely there. I mean, as somebody who's a home theater enthusiast, I think Christopher Nolan is making a very definite stylistic choice based on his idea of, I hate to say it, but verisimilitude. He's trying to add to the reality of what he's doing by making his films feel as real as they can. Because when you're wandering around, say, I don't know, on the waterfront with your, say you're at the Fisherman's Wharf in San Francisco, it's not like when you're talking to your friend, you get to hear everything that they say as if it was mixed in a beautiful mixing stage at a studio. The wind is blowing, there's all kinds of noise, you hear the sea, you hear seagulls. So sometimes you don't quite get to hear what people are saying. And that's the real world. And I really do believe that what Christopher Nolan is trying to do is to add to the experience, add to the reality of what he's doing by using sound in this way. I would object to that because movies at the end of the day are still movies. And if you have characters saying dialogue, if your audience can't hear the dialogue, what you're doing then is you're making the audience think to themselves in a movie theater, wait, what did he say? Instead of being immersed in the reality of it, it gets in the way. And I think if something gets in the way, if you bump on it, that's a failing of you as a filmmaker.
Yep. I agree. And again, I can't comment on how this applies to Tenet because I haven't seen it yet myself. They're opening the theaters in Orange County, so maybe I'll finally have a chance to do that, but we'll see. All right, hashtag release the Audible cut rights. 3 months later, think you've seen Tenet? Think again. Christopher Nolan presents Tenet, the Audible cut. Experience the re-release in IMAX with 40% of the original dialogue now fully audible. Joking, of course. Love the show. Can't wait for your talk. It's, yeah, I mean, that would be interesting if they put out a new thing saying the actual Audible thing and with closed captions. All right, Gabriel writes, one of two. I trust Marvel to handle the Black Panther situation with class and respect. An option I haven't heard thrown around a lot is the possibility of making a prequel, maybe set another generation, maybe World War II, where we can see another Black Panther in action. It would be a way of cementing the title of Black Panther as a mantle passed on, making a smooth transition to the audience. Also, it gives them a couple of extra years to decide which course to take for T'Challa. It would fill the desire for Black Panther for some. You know, that's been brought up, Gabriel. And I gotta say, I don't like the idea personally. I mean, I'm not against it. Like, I'm not against the idea of showing a different era because, you know, Black Panther is a mantle that's been passed. But again, to me, Black Panther isn't about that mantle. Black Panther is about the man. It's about T'Challa. That's what it is to me. And trying to go back and make another one, which, hey, listen, I'll be down for. I'll go with it, sure. But it's not my first choice because it just detracts away from what I think the real work, what Chadwick Boseman did with establishing this character. It's establishing the character, and the character is T'Challa. That's what Black Panther is about. It's about T'Challa. And I personally, I feel, I'm not going to use the word, everybody throws around the word disrespect. I'm not going to say disrespectful, but because I don't think it's disrespectful, but I think it's a bit of a disservice. I'll at least say I would feel like it's a bit of a disservice to go that route. And, you know, but that's just my take on it, but it's certainly a door that is open to them. I agree, but I don't think you make movies to be reactionary to events, right? There's no need to make, if they were planning on doing a Black Panther set in World War II, then do it. But if you weren't, then don't just now scramble to come up with something to do that. That's being reactionary, and I think that can get in the way of things. But then again, you can make an argument the death of Chadwick Boseman requires a reaction of some sorts, one way or the other. There's an argument to be made there. But that is definitely, Gabriel, you're not alone in floating that idea. That is an idea that has been floated by others. And who knows, it might be the way they decide to go. All right, Jordan Lobo writes, just finished Lucifer, and wow, the humor is absolutely cheerful, and the heart of the show is breathtaking. The Mojo episode is my favorite one. Absolutely hilarious. But that ending was way too good to pause it there. Why they have to do us like that? Rob, I didn't even have a chance to ask you. Have you had a chance to see have you seen the new half season of Lucifer?
No, I haven't watched that yet.
Oh, you're missing out. Oh, you're missing out. I won't give anything away. But to Jordan's point, the ending, I remember Anne, because Anne and I were binging, and I didn't realize she fell asleep, because it was like 2 a.m. She fell asleep halfway through the final episode. So the next morning, as we woke up, she put it on, and watching her react to the ending, and I'm not going to say anything, but the ending of episode 8 was glorious. She's like, no. And she's like hitting the button as if that'll magically make the next episode of Lucifer appear. Come on, where did they get it? It was hilarious. So Jordan, you're not alone in that thought, my friend. You're not alone in that thought. All right, BC33 writes, I saw Tenet this weekend and I really liked it. I don't really understand some of the criticism of the movie though. The story was complex, but I understood it completely in the end. And sound mixing wise, I was able to hear the dialogue fine throughout. Well, again, that's great, BC. I'm glad you were able to. Again, I can't comment on that personally because I haven't seen it myself. It might vary from theater to theater, but it's not like only 2 or 3% of people are coming out and saying the story was too complex. We're hearing a lot of people saying that, and a lot of people are saying they had a really tough time with the dialogue. So it'll be different from person to person. I think that's probably going to be different for everybody, just like it was for you. But I'm very curious, BC. I'm very, very curious to see it myself, to see what my kind of experience is. So then I'll just go from there. All right, next up, Morris Codes writes, I hope Rob is there to hear this. He is here to hear this. Young Sherlock Holmes starred Nicholas Rowe as the titular sleuth. Rowe also cameos as an actor playing Sherlock Holmes in a matinee attended by Mr. Holmes in McKellen's movie. I love that stuff. I never did watch Young Sherlock Holmes.
Dude.
Was it good? You enjoyed it?
It's really, really good.
So it's all right. I might have to get. Are you familiar with what it is, the scene he's talking about, and what it is he's talking about? Here?
Yeah. Yep.
Since I had no idea, I've never seen the show. I don't know Nicholas Rowe, so that's something that obviously I wouldn't be able to talk about. But there you go. Thanks for sharing that, Morse codes. All right, next up, Mike Lee writes, ready to feel old? Remember in 13 Going on 30, I love that movie, when Jennifer Garner befriends those 13-year-old girls in her apartment building? Well, those actresses are all 30 years old now and 31 themselves. And fun fact, 13-year-old Brie Larson was one of the Bully's 6 chicks. Really? Was Brie Larson in that? Because I go back to that one quite a bit, Rob, and I'm thinking of Mark Ruffalo. To me, it's like that's when nobody knew Mark Ruffalo. I mean, he had been in some stuff, but Mark Ruffalo was not a name people would instantly recognize. But oh my God, is the movie that old now? Are those girls now like in their 30s? Oh crap. Just another reason. Obviously for me though, the most memorable part of 13 Going on 30 was the Thriller dance. I mean, I think that is for most people. Rob, whether it's Mark Ruffalo, Thriller dance, Jennifer Garner, those 13-year-old girls. What's the thing that you think about when you think about 13 Going on 30?
I wish I was 30. I mean, it was one of those movies where I think when it came out, even I was a little bit old, but it's fun. I going back and watching those older people, teen. I mean, I'd call that a teen movie. I would.
Oh, sure, yeah,
because it is, but it's always fun to go back and watch. It was a simpler time, John. It was. But one of the reasons, yet another movie, that's one of the reasons why I love Jennifer Garner so much. I'm a huge Jennifer Garner guy. Okay, next up, we've got 50 Shades of Geek who writes, am I the only one who thinks The Boys showrunners have some personal vendetta against aquatic creatures? Yeah, because in season 1, there's that no scene in the first season got a bigger reaction out of Ann and Kaori, who was watching it with me, than the dolphin scene in season 1. And we all saw, I'm not spoiling anything because we all saw the clip they released, the thing with the whale. Oh my God. So you might be right about that, 50 Shades. All right, 50 Shades also writes, in honor of Chadwick Boseman, I finally got up and watched Get On Up. I'll say this. The movie feels like a jigsaw puzzle that I didn't like the full picture, but I loved all the individual pieces. I didn't like the non-linear storytelling of it. I do like Get On Up, but again, it is, when I would tell people that, to me, Get On Up is still my favorite Chadwick Boseman performance. I'm also very quick to point out, it's not my favorite Chadwick Boseman movie, but his performances in it is what absolutely killed. And I did enjoy the movie very much. I did. It's not my favorite Chadwick Boseman movie, but as far as a performance goes, if you really want to see how good of an actor he was, go and watch. I mean, definitely watch 42. But to me, what really highlights his range and really what he's able to pull off on screen, go and watch Get On Up. I'm glad you had a chance to check that out, 50 Shades. The Sock writes, just watched highlights from Chan Sung Jung, also known as the Korean Zombie. Some people may not have heard of Jung, but you've heard of the Korean Zombie. He's an amazing UFC fighter. Very exciting to watch. Versus Leonard Garcia. Holy shit, man. Now that's a fight. My God, talk about a knockdown, drag-out fight. That's an old fight. But that was an incredible card. By the way, if I'm not mistaken, like Garcia won. I didn't agree with the decision that. I think Garcia won that fight by split decision. I actually thought the Zombie won that fight. But that also had the California Kid. Why am I forgetting? Why am I freezing on his name? Uriah Faber. Uriah Faber versus Jose Aldo. That left the most. If you want to see something that's going to make you recoil and cringe, look up Uriah Faber, Jose Aldo leg. The pictures, that was the first fight I think a lot of people realized how effective leg kicks are.
because there are pictures online you can go find of Uriah Faber posted the day after his fight, and his leg looks like a beat piece of meat. I mean, it is just grotesque. Yeah, look it up. But also on that card was like Cowboy Cerrone versus Hendo versus Ben Henderson, which it was a terrific card. Anyway, Korean Zombie, Leonard Garcia. If you want to see really one of the great fights, I think one of the top 10 all-time fights, go and look that one up. All right, next up, Ryan Albanese writes, "Hey, John, for Labor Day, my fiance and I drove down to Georgia to visit filming locations and recreate shots. We did I, Tonya. I love I, Tonya. Baby Driver. Edgar Wright's masterpiece of a film. I love that movie. Prisoners, speaking of Denis Villeneuve, and Spectacular Now. Afterwards, I realized there sure are a lot of underappreciated films made in Georgia." Well, Rob, it's not just that they're underappreciated. Georgia is like Hollywood 2.
Yeah.
It's Hollywood 2. Like, Georgia implemented so many tax credits for filming there. There's so many advantages. There is a lot of filming, and it's become the de facto home base for Marvel to shoot all their films too. Like, Georgia's become a big hotspot. Why do you see that being the case?
Well, I mean, they did. Tax credits are a big reason. I mean, it became very financially desirable to shoot there. And then you had people like Tyler Perry, who is a recently minted billionaire, has built a massive, giant, state-of-the-art facility. And I have to. That guy, I love Tyler Perry. I might not love all of his movies, but as a business person and as somebody who's cranking out entertainment, the fact that he's put into place these protocols where people have to literally come and live in his barracks on his studio lot, and then they're banging out like full seasons of TV shows in a few weeks. I mean, it's incredible what they've done, and more power. You know, Louisiana, they were a production hub, and then they basically cut their tax credits and ended that. I mean, you know, when a local government makes it possible for studios to come in and spend, it's not just the money they spend on production, it's when you have crews that are there on the weekends, those crews are spending the money they've made in that state at local businesses. So it's a great way to add a huge boost and stimulus to local economies. And I think Atlanta was really smart to do what they've done. They're not leaving, and no one's leaving Atlanta anytime soon.
Yeah, Atlanta and Canada are basically like now Hollywood 2 and Hollywood 2A. I mean, it's kind of crazy the way that's. But yeah, Georgia has absolutely become a major hotspot for shooting. Joseph L. writes, "Regarding the binge debate, you have a choice. I often wait for the final week of a season to start watching a show that airs week to week, and I sometimes take my time watching episodes of a show that drops a season at a time. Depends on the show." Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. It kind of depends. There are some shows that you just kind of want to take your time with and go through slowly. Some you want to watch right away. And I've done the same thing you're talking about. There are some shows that have been week to week shows, and I've kind of, I'll get caught up on it later. And then I kind of binge them, you know, a little bit later. So I get it. But again, to me, there's no debate when it comes to what is better for the network. Clearly, what is better for the network, we can debate about what's better for us as fans. There's a debate to be had there, but what's better for the network? No debate. It's week to week gets them way more bang for their buck. All right. Schiffer writes, "Hey, John, longtime viewer since the AMC days. Thank you so much, man. I was wondering if you watched the 1979 Salem's Lot." Oh, that was a mini series. That wasn't a movie. That was a mini series, if I remember correctly. If you watched 1979 Salem Lot, and what did you think of it? I remembered being scared out of my mind with the movie, especially the window scene. Well, I mean, here's the thing. I'm familiar with it, Rob. I'm familiar with it, but I never watched. I mean, when it aired, I was what was I? I was 6. I was.
Open the window.
So was it like what's it basically about? What is it?
Well, it's, you know, David Soul plays. Look, it's a Stephen King story, one of his best early books, and there's a vampire that lives in this town, and hijinks ensue. And Tobe Hooper, who directed Texas Chainsaw Massacre, directed the miniseries. But there's some great. First of all, the vampire is a throwback to like the Max Schreck Nosferatu, and it's Reggie Nalder, I think, who plays the vampire, and it's so, there's some terrifying moments, but the window scene he's referring to, when I watched that, my blood, because they aired it like when they first aired it was like 11:30 at night. Like they wouldn't put it on during prime time because it was that scary. And like this flow, a kid has been vampirized, and he comes to his friend's window and he's scratching outside the window and he's floating in the mist. Bruh. That shit was terrifying. I mean, it was terrifying, and it was great. I mean, to be honest, you can get the miniseries version. There was a movie version that was a 2-hour version, but there's the miniseries version. I have not seen it since it first aired, and I need to go back and get it and watch it because I do want to see, is it still as good as I remember? Because it's one of those childhood memories that maybe should stay a childhood memory, but because it certainly was good.
All right, we move on here. Thanks for sending that in, Schiffer. All right, the sock writes, I think Dominic Toretto would have reared up at Homelander's family, would have teared up, probably is what you meant, would have teared up at Homelander's family speech. Also, I forgot, that's right, I'm not going to give anything away, though. I forgot what it was like to hate a character so quickly since John Wick. By the way, I'm talking about that scene in episode 3. I hope we get some vengeance by the season finale. Oh, I know the character you're talking about, and oh, does my wife hate that character now. And as a matter of fact, my wife said the exact same thing. My wife said, I have never hated a character on a TV show so much. And that's what they were going for. That's what they're trying. Again, I'm not going to give anything away, but that was rather stunning. And it was very, very memorable. And it caught like a whole bunch of people like, what the hell? Anyway, but again, we can't really talk openly about it here because I'm sure a lot of people haven't had a chance to watch those 3 episodes yet. But I'm with you, Sock. All right. Pastry chef Brian writes, hey, John, after seeing Tenet in IMAX and in Dolby, it was an incredible film, but not better than Inception. It would have been better if the sound wasn't too high. With Dolby Atmos, my ears were hurting during the action scenes. Stay smart and stay safe. Yeah, I'm not hearing anybody saying it's their favorite Christopher Nolan film. I'm hearing a lot of people say they like it. Like a lot of people are saying they like it. Most people are saying they like it. Still very, very high critic reviews, all that kind of stuff. But even the high critic reviews, even the critics who love it are saying, but a few issues here and there. But, we don't need it to be Christopher Nolan's best movie. We just need another good movie from Christopher Nolan. So I'm hoping, and again, I'm going to keep my fingers crossed, Pastry Chef, that when I do get a chance to get out there and see it, maybe it'll be this week because, again, like I said, Orange County is opening their theaters. Hopefully when I get to see it, I won't have those audio issues, but I'm hearing from a lot of people that they are, so I'm not, we'll see. Min Tran writes, I saw the New Mutants last Saturday. It had a Glass/Dr. Sleep vibe to it. I think that's a very accurate way to put it. It is not as good as those 2 films, but it was an enjoyable watch. I'll go on a limb here, Rob. I liked New Mutants not as much as Dr. Sleep. I really like Dr. Sleep. That's another one where they totally botched the marketing campaign, like completely, right down to the title of the movie. They should have titled it something completely different. I don't care what the book was called. So I didn't like New Mutants nearly as much as I liked Dr. Sleep. I wasn't a big fan of Glass. And so I don't think New Mutants is a great movie by any stretch, but I actually liked it more than I like Glass. Where would you rank it if you had to look at those 3? And do you think that's an apt comparison to those 2 films?
Yeah, I do. I have to tell you, I loved Split so much that when I went into Glass, I couldn't help but be disappointed because it just seems so small-minded. I mean, especially after Unbreakable and Split, which kind of seemed pretty epic, at least emotionally, where Glass, I mean, the big battle takes place on the front lawn of this facility. It's, yeah. I mean, I could see that. I could see, and I felt the same way about New Mutants as I did about Glass, in the sense that they're movies that they're both set in institutions where you're dealing with the characters in this realm. Those are actually the two of the comparing and contrasting those 2 movies, both super heroic, dealing with powered people. And I do think they kind of suffered from the same thing, in that the scope for those movies is small and you want it to be bigger than it was. I mean, and Glass hinted at it being bigger at the end with what happens at the end. And then New Mutants, I don't know. I just felt it was a little small. Wait, what was the 3rd movie I'm supposed to talk about?
Was Glass, New Mutants, and Dr. Sleep.
And Dr. Sleep, I think, is a way different kind of a movie. But I really liked Dr. Sleep. It had scope. I thought that it had. I liked the multiple character points of view. You're seeing that you do meet the evil villains, and you're seeing their machinations along with what's going on with. So I think Doctor Sleep is a much better movie than both New Mutants and Glass, but I think New Mutants and Glass are a really interesting compare and contrast in terms of those two films and how they work, because they're very similar.
All right, let's keep going here. The next one up comes to us from an anonymous viewer who writes, "Hey, John, if Tenet finishes around 300 to 350 million, which means the movie didn't break even, how will that affect Wonder Woman and Black Widow releases? Do you think Warner Brothers will risk another big loss with Wonder Woman or just delay the movie to 2021? I mean, first of all, yes, if it makes 300 to 350 million, which I think that's probably a pretty accurate guess around, because this thing's approaching 200. I think that's probably a pretty accurate guess. There's no doubt about it. It loses money. There's no doubt about it. But it also could be a part of the fact that, listen, we were talking about the other day. There's just a lot of people that had no idea that movie theaters were even reopening. I mean, we know because we're talking about it every day. There's a huge chunk of people that had no idea the movie theaters were reopening. And that's why we've been talking for months about the fact that they need to get the cogs moving. They need to get the machine running. They need to get awareness out there that the movie theaters are reopening if they are in your town, because they're not in mine. They need to do that. And I think, if anything, Warner Brothers may look at, what's happening with Tenet as, this is us getting that machine going again. If anything, is what's really interesting, Rob, when you look at that trailer for Dune that came out today, what were the big words at the end of the trailer on that last screen? Only in theaters. Yep. Only in theaters. Like, they're like, this is only in theaters. And in the description on Warner Brothers post of the Dune trailer, it's coming out December, blah, blah, blah. I think, if anything, they will look at however Tenet resolves. I think they're looking at that as it's an investment for them to get the theaters going again, to get all that kind of stuff up and running. But Wonder Woman's an interesting situation, because unlike Dune, which is off in December, and we may very well have a vaccine by then, Wonder Woman's a little closer. And so I don't know. My guess is, here's my guess. My guess is Wonder Woman keeps its release date. That's my guess. But I'm not going to be shocked if they move it at all. But if I had to bet $1, I'm going to guess Wonder Woman is going to keep their release date. Warner Brothers does seem to be doubling down on this. They seem to be very set. No, our films are theatrical films. We think we're going to get this thing moving again. They may look at 300 to 350 as being as good as they maybe thought they could have gotten from Tenet under the current circumstances. So I don't know. Rob, what do you think is going to, be a result of all this?
I've been asking myself that question almost on a daily basis, looking at how much money Tenet is making, because the real question, I think, is that will they get a return on their investment? If you spend $200 million on a movie, you're looking to make $800 million to break even, to get those interest payments back, to show it in profitability. And if Tenet doesn't get anywhere near that right now in theaters worldwide, I mean, I don't know what that number is that they're looking to get. Maybe it's $500 million dollars, but it might be just economically not feasible to release movies in theaters now with the amount of people that are going. And we'll see. I think Tenet's the canary in the coal mine. We're going to see if it works as far as big budget blockbuster movies go. I think smaller movies can come out, but I think it's going to be rough. And we've got No Time to Die and Wonder Woman. And I don't know when Black Widow is supposed to come out, but you've got 3 pending movies that are 150 million to 200 million. In the case of Die Another Day, $250 million propositions. And they have to earn a lot at the box office. And it's not like video on demand is going to save them either. And I don't think a streaming service is willing to make a movie cost $250 million and have it be worth their while. Not yet, anyway. I mean, maybe Netflix will be the first, but it's tough. I think we don't know the answers yet, and I think they don't know the answers either. It's in flux.
All right. Next up, K Major writes, Opie is your favorite character from Sons. Yes, he is. Really? Mine was Chibs and Bobby. Oh, I like Chibs. Listen, Tig is also an amazing character. Tiggy was a great character. But yeah, Ope was my favorite character. And obviously Jax is the main character of the show and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But there was something about the character of Ope and his storyline. Like from his wife and his marriage, and then what happened after his wife dies, and just everything about the loyalty. There's something about that Ope character that's always resonated with. And obviously Bobby, Chibs, Tig, all the way down. Hap was a great character, and they carried over Hap into the Mayans, by the way. So you'll see Hap pop up a bunch in the spin-off show Mayans, which is much better than I thought it would be. The Mayan show is better than I thought it would be. But yeah, I love that character. All right. Hey, John, love the show, writes. A big criticism for the sequel trilogy was lack of a plan, obviously. I don't think that was a problem inherently. Oh, it absolutely was. It is the core of every issue they've had with any of their movies. The Star Wars trilogy wasn't planned. Yes, it was. Leia wasn't meant to be Luke's sister. No, she wasn't. And the prequels were very planned out, and they sucked. It's all in the execution. No, it is very much in the execution. Here, let's talk about this Leia thing for a second, because I had this discussion with somebody else before, Rob. George Lucas had a basic idea where he wanted everything to go, right? So he had a starting point, but he knew what his finishing line was. He knew what that was, and there was some flexibility in how you got to that finishing point, but it was going to keep you on a basic trajectory. The Leia thing is infamous, that, even while he was doing Empire Strikes Back, he didn't know he was going to make Leia Luke's sister. But honestly, this is going to sound weird, but when you really look at it, it's absolutely true. Leia being Luke's sister was a minor point. It was a minor point. Because if they didn't make Leia Luke's sister, how does that change Return of the Jedi? It doesn't. It changes a couple of scenes. Like, it changes, sister, so you have a sister. Okay, yeah, that shot doesn't happen, but that throne room scene still happens. If the conversation he has with her on Endor is strong with my family, and you have it too. I've known, somehow I've always known. Okay, that scene doesn't happen, but Endor still happens. It was a minor point that was interesting, and it definitely set up what happened after Return of the Jedi and caused a lot of repercussions much, much later on. We are talking, who is Rey? That's a core foundational thing. Ultimately, by the end of this, who's the villain? That is a core foundational thing that affects everything along the way. So, while you're absolutely right, like there are points that Lucas kind of made up as he went along. I think you need to have that. But like, just from a foundational, we have no blueprint. We don't even ultimately know who's the bad guy of our film. We don't even know who our hero is. These are core foundational things. But I don't know, Rob, like, do you think the Lucas thing, like with Leia and a few other things, do you think that that's a good comparison, or do you think like me that it's not? How do you see that?
Well, okay, no, because anything that happened with the original Star Wars trilogy in terms of planning, you can't take into consideration because nobody knew. George Lucas and Steven Spielberg, when Star Wars opened, Lucas didn't think it was going to be a hit and lit off to Hawaii with Spielberg to hang out. And then Alan Dean Foster wrote Splinter of the Mind's Eye as a potential low-budget sequel. Nobody knew what was going to happen with Star Wars. Lucas had all of these ideas, but if Star Wars wasn't a hit, it would have died on the vine. And so when they wrote Empire Strikes Back, you had people like Lee Brackett and Lawrence Kasdan come in and write that script, and with Lucas's input. Again, they were making up a mythology based on notes and ideas Lucas had. So, but by the end of Empire Strikes Back, when you have that solidified, then it's like, okay, now we have to figure out what our universe really is. Well, I don't think when Yoda said, that boy is our last hope, and Yoda says, there is another. I don't think that they even knew who that other was. No, they just left themselves an opening, and they made it work. I mean, Return of the Jedi works. But after that's said and done, once you know the Star Wars universe is up and running and functioning, planning is everything. Because we live in a world now with how many fantasy epic trilogy stories are there? I mean, you've got so many storylines from Lord of the Rings to Harry Potter to people know they're telling these long form stories. So there's really no excuse. And when you spend $4 billion, I don't understand why a story group was not immediately hired to chart out not just the 3 trilogy movies, the sequel trilogy, but where the Star Wars universe has gone. And what's interesting is it was done in the novels and in the comics. They already had all that heavy lifting done. They could have laid into that, but they didn't. And it's just, I think like you do, it was a function of corporate wanted one thing. They wanted to reboot this franchise and make it exciting for young people, which means that the classic trilogy characters were not paid attention to as much as they should have been, and they thought they would wing it. They didn't want to, because they just spent $4 billion, and to create something up front, you'd have to hire people to do that. And I don't think they were really keen to necessarily do any kind of exploratory research work to see what they might be able to make. They went and hired a high-profile filmmaker coming off of another franchise, Star Trek, and J.J. Abrams, who'd done well in TV. It looked like a great hire. And then, like, let's just jump into it because we got to get that $4 billion back.
All right. Next up, George writes, seen Mulan, other than Lion King, this was only second remake / animated live action movie I've really wanted to see and have seen. Wasn't sure if I wanted to pay $30 for it, but I thought about it and I have actually saved money since the theaters have been closed for so long. So I said, why not? Never saw the original animated one, so I knew nothing about the story. The only one negative thing for me was that the battle felt really small. I expected much bigger battle. I give it 8 out of 10. Really enjoyed Mulan. Yeah, I liked Mulan. I did. It just, I had such high hopes for that movie. And one of the things I said in my review for Mulan was that I caught myself saying missed opportunity so many times in my head watching the movie. Missed opportunity. And definitely this grand, epic feeling, sweeping countryside battle sequences was really shortchanged. I think in the different times they've come to battles, it's like you could have done so much with that. And that was one of the underperforming things. Again, there are a number of very strong things. It is a beautiful film to look at. I love the relationship between Hua Mulan and her father. That was the core of everything. I like the character very much. Again, I liked it. I liked Mulan. I just, as a film that was one of my most anticipated of the year, and I just love the trailer so much, I just really felt like it could have been more. I didn't need it to be more like the cartoon. Not at all. Not at all. I like the fact that they were kind of making it its own more grounded sort of feel. But yeah, again, just kind of, it could have been so much more. But I'm glad you liked it that much, George. All right, Roger writes, Cara Dune was my favorite part of The Mandalorian Season 1, and what I am most excited for about Season 2. Gina Carano is a badass on screen and in real life. She is absolutely a badass in real life. And she's great positive presence on social media, something sorely needed today. Listen, the thing about Gina Carano, and I've said this for a long time, Rob, you and I have had these conversations. She is not a great actress. I mean, I love Gina Carano, but she's not a great actress. She's just not. I mean, you get the leading role in a movie and they end up, and your native language is English and they need to end up dubbing you for a lot of the film. That's not a good sign, but she has worked hard. She's gotten better. And one of the things I am with you, Roger. I very much enjoyed her in Mandalorian Season 1. She has clearly grown. She has clearly gotten better. And I quite enjoyed her in that. And it's funny, Rob, because I was watching we were watching the documentary series, the Mandalorian making of thing that they put up on Disney Plus. And it was so funny seeing this round table of, and a couple of big guys at this table, John Favreau, Carl Weathers. You got Mandalorian himself there. You got Dave Filoni there. And there's Gina Carano, and I'm watching this and I'm thinking, I wonder what it feels like for her, knowing that if she wanted to, with her bare hands, she could murder everybody in that room and there's nothing they could do about it. Yeah. Like you have to go back. Seriously, it was a brutal. She with a lot of power. She's a great fighter. But anyway, Rob, what are you looking forward to seeing in Cara Dune in season 2? Like, I hope she does actually play an even slightly larger role in this season. But what do you think of her character in Mandalorian?
Well, first of all, I love her. I find her to be incredibly sexy. I love watching her move. I love the fact that I know she can kill a dude with her bare hands. I just love her physical presence. I just want to see her kick ass, man, and maybe wear some slinkier outfits. But that's just me because I'm a dirty old man.
I personally, I loved her outfits. I thought she looked great.
She looked great, but I'd like to see more of her. You know what I'm saying?
She's great. All right. Drew H writes, I appreciate what they were trying to do with Mulan, but I did not like it. I personally thought the character choices they made very early with Mulan regarding Chi really undermined the message of the theme of the story. It's hard to go into detail without spoiling. No, the Chi stuff was an interesting, different take. And I'll be honest with you, again, it's one of the elements I liked, but also, if you're going to have that, there's so much more you could have done with it. It was yet another thing for me that it was like missed opportunity. Like, why introduce the whole aspect of Chi if you're really not going to make it play much of a part at all? And that ultimately is what they did. Again, I don't want to go into spoilers with it. So I get people who really like this movie, and I get where you're coming from, Drew, about why you wouldn't. Again, to me, I enjoyed it, but it just could have been so much more. All right, last question we'll get here with Rob, because I know Rob's got things he's got to do. Drew H writes, I want to watch Tenet and New Mutants so badly, but we just got word that the lockdown here in Hawaii is extending for another 2 weeks at minimum. Unfortunately, unlike others, I am not able to drive across borders to go where theaters are open. Yep. Yeah, that's one of the things, Rob. I mean, at least you and I, we have the option. If we wanted to drive to Vegas, I can drive to Vegas. If I want to drive to San Diego, I can drive to San Diego. Fortunately, it looks like they're opening Orange County, so really won't have that much of a drive to do if I really want to try it. But there are people who don't even have those options right now. There are people who don't even have those options. But I don't know. I know this, though. If Dune was opening today and the closest theater open was Toronto, I'm probably making that drive. I am probably getting in my car and making that drive.
Will they let you cross the border?
I'm a Canadian citizen, so they'll let me cross the border, but they'll instantly make me go into 2-week quarantine. Oh, I don't know. I find a way, Rob. I'm telling you, I would find a way.
Like life in Jurassic Park.
Life finds a way, brother. Life finds a way. And as always, you found a way to be here today. Rob, thanks a lot for making an appearance here today. I know you got things you got to do, but in the meantime, brother, where are people going to find you in your adventures online?
You can always find me on Instagram, Robert Meyer Burnett. Find me on Twitter, Burnett RM, or find me on my own YouTube channel, The Burnett Work, and my show, Robservations.
All right, dude. Thanks a lot for being here, and I will talk to you again later, my friend.
All right.
All right, guys, that is Mr. Robert Meyer Burnett. We still got some time here, so let's keep on firing through your questions, shall we? All right, that was Drew H. Now we pick up with Tiberius, who writes, Hey, John and gang. Top 3 sports moments in movie history, not top sports movies, just moments. 3, the look Hugh Jackman's son gives him during the final robot fight in Real Steel. I love Real Steel, by the way. That was a movie I didn't think would be all that good. It's really great. 2, Kurt Russell's pregame speech before U.S. hockey teams plays Russia in, what was the name of that one again? It's the Hockey Olympic, Dream, Glory, Dream Team. I can't remember the name of it. Miracle. And Tiberius writes, in Miracle. And 3, after coming out of a labor and birth-induced coma, Adrian tells Rocky to win in Rocky II. It's funny, Rocky II was just on TV the other day. I just flipped by it on the channels. Each of these moments brings a lump to my throat and makes me feel like I can charge a hill. Thoughts? Those are all good moments. Those are all good moments. Love those moments. Couple of the biggest ones to me, though. One, there's a particular Russell Crowe speech done in Mystery Alaska, which is a hockey movie. Love. If you haven't seen Mystery Alaska, I know most of you haven't seen Mystery Alaska. Watch it. It's awesome. Mike Myers makes an appearance in it, too. But my favorite, you guys know what I'm going to say, my favorite moment all time, one of my all-time favorite moments in any movie, sports or not. One of my all-time favorite moments in any movie, sports or not. Best of the best. As Tommy, standing there beaten because he spared the other guy's life. And he, with his patch, comes over, takes over, puts his medal on Tommy, and says, I deeply regret the loss of your brother, and I offer myself as your new brother. I'm getting hair on my arm is standing up. You want to pound your chest like a man. You want to stand up and go, grr. It is one of the greatest single moments in the history of this. Dahan limps across the aisle, takes off his gold medal, and puts it on Tommy instead. That, end of sentence, end of story. Greatest moment in sports movie history, at least to me. One of the greatest moments in any movie ever. Best of the best, Eric Roberts, James Earl Jones. Go check it out. All right, that's me, Tiberius. All right, next up, Roman writes, the Penguin's death in Batman Returns is so powerful. It's a silly idea on paper, a family of penguins laying Oswald to rest. But the scene of Danny Elfman's score made you feel especially bad for him in the end. I got to admit, listen, I know a lot of people, some good friends of mine, including Rob, that really like Batman Returns. Really like Batman Returns. I got to admit, I'm not a big fan. I mean, Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, come on. I mean, that's Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman, come on. But other than that, I got to admit, I've never been big, and I got to say, that moment never really worked for me. Now, you're not alone, though, Roman. There are a lot of people love that scene. I respect that. I'd be lying to you if I told you I'm one of those people that, didn't work for me so well. You know what I mean? But then again, overall, I'm not a big fan of that movie overall in general anyway. Like, I really prefer the first Tim Burton Batman film. But that's just me. But you're not alone, Roman. A lot of people really do like that scene. All right, next up, Murray Reich writes, one of two. Despite theaters in New York, especially in New York City, are still closed, the theaters in New Jersey, especially one near me, were finally reopened this week. Oh, I didn't know about that, which was great. Anyways, went to see at an AMC theater, Tenet. Movie was pretty good, a bit long, very complex film. I have to admit, I was very hard to follow what was going on because there's so much exposition. The idea sounds interesting. All characters are great. Overall, it's good, but not a top 5 Nolan film. It was great overall to be back in the movie theaters again. I'll tell you again, I can't comment on Tenet because I haven't had a chance to see it yet myself, living where I live. But I can relate with that issue of the item of being great to be back in the theaters again. When I made that drive to Las Vegas, just to go see New Mutants, just being back in the theater again. I hadn't stepped foot in a movie theater in almost 6 months. Just being back in the theater was so great. It was so great. And I am quite anxious to do it again. So hopefully now that Orange County is opening their theaters this week, I'll have a chance finally to get on over there, see Tenet. Hopefully the Orange County theaters will be as good about putting in really strict safety procedures for everybody, because the theater in Vegas was aces. The theater in Vegas, they went above and beyond. It was such a safe feeling environment to be in. They did a great job. Here's hoping that the ones in Orange County do the same, or else I'm just going to turn around and go home. But we'll see how that all turns out. Glad you had a chance to go out and see a movie, though, Murray. I hope I enjoy it when I get a chance to finally see it. All right. Nate Dogg writes, I wanted to watch Raised by Wolves on HBO Max today, and so my friend and I spent 45 minutes trying to sign up for their service. We finally gave up because it was such a complicated mess. Is HBO Max really that hard to sign up for? Am I just an idiot? Well, it depends on how you're trying to sign up. Like, I ultimately signed up for it just on my iPad, right? Which meant I had to watch on my iPad, but I was able to sign up for it on my iPad. And I will say, because I got a deal offered to me, the experience of signing up for it on the iPad was actually pretty painless. Now, if you're trying to sideload HBO Max onto your Amazon Fire, or if you're trying to sign up for it on Roku, then yeah, it's going to be very, very frustrating because number one, you just can't get it on Roku, or the side loading experience for Amazon Fire can be a little bit complicated and tricky to some people. So it all depends on how you're trying to sign up for it. All I can say is that me signing up for it using the iPad was a fairly painless process. But I can see on other platforms, maybe it would be a little bit more tricky. All right, next up. Nate Dogg also writes, I started watching Kim's Convenience after you recommended it. It's so good. It's so good. It's on Netflix, guys. It's a Canadian show, so maybe you've never had a chance to see it, but it's on Netflix. It is seriously the best sitcom that's out there right now. I mean, obviously, like Parks and Rec and Seinfeld and The Office are no longer on, but it is the best sitcom going right now. Kim's Convenience, check it out. I started watching Kim's Convenience after you recommended it on your show, and I love it. It's the funniest sitcom I've seen in a while. I love the whole multicultural aspect of the show. Kimchi and Appa, not Apo, it's Appa, A-P-P-A. Appa are my favorite characters. Who are yours? Oh, Kimchi is great. Why do you call yourself Kimchi? Because I'm hot. I mean, Kimchi is a great character, but Appa. Yeah, Appa is probably one of my top 5 favorite television characters, period. Now, and that's Mr. Kim. I love that character so much. I love this show so much. It's true. I can't believe I've gone this long without ever watching it. So yes, if you get a chance, make sure follow Nate Dogg's example and check out Kim's Convenience. Jared Gunn writes, hey, John, are Netflix that concerned about people continuously talking about their shows when they release original content so often? I feel Disney Plus need to release weekly with the lack of new originals. Netflix, however, releases new originals every week. I honestly don't think, listen, there's this idea out there, Jared, that, well, people can only talk about one thing at a time. No, that's not true at all. That's not true at all. I can talk all day about The Boys, about Doom Patrol, about Umbrella Academy. I can talk all about, Lovecraft Country. I can talk all about Raised by Wolves. I can talk about multiple things. Netflix, the idea, Netflix isn't worried about, oh, well, if everybody's talking about Stranger Things season 4, they won't be talking about this other show of ours. Yes, we can talk about multiple things at once and get buzzed and spread buzz about multiple things at a time. So that's not a problem. That I guarantee you, Jared, that's not going to be one of the issues they solve. And that's why I think you're going to see them slowly start to move more and more towards, I'm thinking within the next 3 years, we're going to see Netflix regular. I think they'll still drop some things all at once, but I think you're going to slowly over the next 3 to 4 years, you're going to see them move towards weekly releases because it's just way more beneficial for them to do that. All right. Tommy Woodward writes, my theater magically opened yesterday and I finally got to see a movie after 6 months, saw Tenet. It was just okay. Hey, listen though, the fact that you're able to get back into theaters is great. I'm hoping the ones near me are able to open soon if they can do so safely. Maybe I'll be able to get out to Orange County, but at least you've got yours open. And hey, you got to go see a movie. I'm hoping I like Tenet more than you did when I finally get to see it. We'll see. The Wakandan Forever writes, hey, John, hope you're doing well. I am doing well. Thank you so much. I have always been a superhero movie guy. For the longest time, I never paid attention to television shows. I was always intimidated by the thought of watching an entire TV series that can last dozens of episodes over multiple seasons. Over the course of watching the show, I guess you mean my show, and with the recommendation of yourself and the viewers, I have gotten to a place where I've been able to enjoy tons of great shows over the years. Thank you guys. Wakanda forever. Top 10 television shows I've seen since watching the John Campea Show. 1, The Boys. 2, Doom Patrol. 3, Daredevil. 4, Harley Quinn. Oh, I love Harley Quinn. Number 5, Black Lightning. Number 6, Heroes. Heroes season 1 to me is still my favorite season of television ever. I'm not saying Heroes is the best show of all time, but the first season of Heroes is my single favorite season of television ever. Anyway, 7, Smallville. 8, Flash. 9, Teen Titans. 10, Arrow. Thank you again. Keep it filthy. Wakanda forever. Oh, I'm glad. Yeah, there's some good stuff on TV, man. And if you got Netflix, like getting into Daredevil, obviously, I would highly suggest as well their Punisher. They only did 2 seasons of Punisher, but I really enjoyed both seasons of Punisher. Yeah, man. I mean, there's a lot of good. CW's got the first few seasons of Arrow are great. I really enjoyed The Flash. I also really like Black Lightning, The Boys, Doom Patrol, and Umbrella Academy. I notice you haven't got Umbrella Academy on there. Check out Umbrella Academy. It's wonderful. Like, seriously, Doom Patrol, The Boys, and Umbrella Academy. It's like amazing that I get to live in a time where like all three of these shows are going at the same time. Absolutely love them. Really glad you're able to find some new stuff to enjoy and love Wakanda Forever. All right. James Hoffman writes, CBS All Access had a virtual Star Trek con yesterday. I heard about that. With lots of panels and new trailers. They had panels for all the Trek shows, including the classic shows like Voyager, The Next Generation, and Deep Space Nine. Did you or Rob get a chance to watch any of it? I did not. I had only heard about it yesterday. I'm sure, it's too bad Rob's not here to talk about that. I had only even heard about it yesterday for the first time. I never even heard of it until just yesterday. I saw some things pop up. But I mean, my day was spoken for yesterday, so I didn't have a chance to watch any of it. Unfortunately, no. But I will be curious to go back, particularly like Next Generation. But unlike Rob, I am a big fan of Star Trek Discovery. I'm a big fan of Star Trek Discovery. I really like that show. And Rob really doesn't, but I really like that show. And so I would be very curious to see that. And I think I will go and see if I can find that stuff. Thanks for the heads up on that, James. All right, next up, an anonymous viewer writes, hey, John, I wish if you can add weekly reviews for TV shows that you enjoy, like Lovecraft Country and The Boys, like you did with Mandalorian. Big fan for you. Big fan for you, so it will give me something to look forward to after watching the episode, and it will add to your show. Here's the problem, Anonymous. I am thinking about picking up doing, now that the first 3 episodes are done, I'm thinking about picking up doing a weekly review of each episode of The Boys. But the problem is my TV watching is very sporadic. And to me, like, there's no point in me putting up a review of an episode if the episode came out 4 days ago. You know what I mean? Then there's no point for me to do it. And a lot of times I watch episodes and shows like days after it airs. By that point, everybody's already talked about the episode. There's no point in me talking about it. But I'm thinking with The Boys, I will try to watch the show the day it drops and then that day do a quick review of it. Like we did with Mandalorian. So I don't think I'll do that with Lovecraft Country because I'm just too sporadic with it, or Raised by Wolves or anything like that. But I think for The Boys, I am going to try to do that. I think Ann and I are going to try to do that together, actually. So I will keep you updated if we're actually able to make that happen. Let's see. Hold on a second. Just got to ban somebody. Okay. Where are we at here? Godzilla is King writes, hey, John and Rob, saw Tenet twice and I liked most of it. Also, you have mentioned that if theater reopenings are successful, you could see some movies move back into 2020. What are some of those movies and movies you could see that happening? Hashtag Team Godzilla all day. Team Kong, that's the place to be. I think the point is moot. I think for movies, studios to look at films that they moved out of 2020, I think there was a possibility that some of them could move back into 2020 if the theaters were able to open again with a lot more vibrance, and if movies like New Mutants and Tenet overperformed what they thought they would do under the current circumstances. As things stand, I think they're all kind of performing around where they expected it to perform, given the current circumstances. And because of that, while I do think before there was a possibility that, hey, if Tenet opens and instead of making, 150 million by the end of its, worldwide by the end of its original North American open, if it had been like 300 million, then I think there would have been some studios would have looked at some films and say, hey, maybe we can move this back into November of 2020. But that didn't happen. I think things just kind of opened the way they expected them to open. I think, you know, with Tenet closing in on 200 million right now, that's kind of where they thought it would be. And that being the case, I don't think there's any studios looking to change their plans to now move up their film from 2021 back into 2020. I just don't think that's going to happen at this point. I could be wrong, but I just don't think that's going to happen at this point. All right. Star Wars Rocks writes, hi, John. Now that we've actually heard from Daisy Ridley herself about the whole Rey is Palpatine's granddaughter thing, was never in the cards from the beginning, and that the actual idea was floated was an Obi-Wan connection. What do you think about what was said in that interview? Well, I mean, I think there's a couple things to make clear. She was never going to be an Obi-Wan character. They just said, all she said was that for a little bit they toyed with the idea of an Obi-Wan thing, but they settled on nobody. She's going to be a nobody. They fiddled around with the idea of Obi-Wan. Actually, let me give my friend Christian Harloff a hard time. I was just actually talking to Christian yesterday. Let me give my friend Christian Harloff a hard time. Because I saw before my show started here that Christian was titling his episode today that Rey was originally a Kenobi. That is not what Daisy Ridley said. So let me jab Christian a little bit there. That is not what Daisy Ridley said. Daisy Ridley said, let me see if I can bring it up again. What Daisy Ridley specifically said was, at the beginning, there was toying with an Obi-Wan connection. There were different versions, and then it really settled on that she was no one. She was never originally going to be a Kenobi. They did play with that idea, but it never really came around to that. But basically, you know, Star Wars Rocks, I mean, I really talked about it all at the beginning of the show. I think it once again highlights the fact that one of the biggest problems with this current iteration was that there was just no plan. And they got away with not having a plan for a little while. You can get away with not having a plan, but eventually it catches up with you. And we saw that in spectacular fashion by the time we got to the Rise of Skywalker. So, I mean, yeah, I think I think The Force Awakens is absolutely fabulous. I love The Force Awakens. But once you get past the first movie, it starts to become clear about what happens when you don't have a pre-existing set out plan. And I mean, it's one thing if you weren't planning on doing a trilogy, but you planned on doing a trilogy. So plan out the trilogy. I mean, it's frustrating. But again, I'm not going to get too upset about it because this is something we already knew. I mean, and that I already lamented about in that one Star Wars video of mine. So yeah, it just is what, but it also goes to show that John Boyega was very incorrect when Boyega was saying, well, they knew exactly what they were doing with Rey. No, they didn't. And they really scuffed it, man. They completely scuffed it. Okay, anyway. Benjamin Atwater writes, just wanted to recommend the Korean show Kingdom on Netflix. Many people have been recommending this to me, including my friend Corey. Ann and I, we have a friend named Corey. I'm sure many of you know her. You've seen her on my shows before, who just swears by that show. Swears by it. Think Game of Thrones set in feudal 1960s Korea amidst a zombie outbreak. Some of the best production value I've seen on a show. Extremely cinematic. Have you seen it, John? Only 2 6-episode seasons. I have not seen it, but Corey is always on us about needing to watch it. And I've heard from a number of other viewers saying I really need to check it out. So I think I will be checking it out soon enough, Benjamin. I will get on that soon enough. All right. R. Lee writes, just watched a show you did a few days ago on the subject of actors doing their own stunts, Tom Cruise, Jackie Chan, etc. For insurance purposes, can a studio prohibit an actor from doing their own stunts, even if they want to? Do they have that sort of authority? Oh my gosh, R. Lee, listen, it's the studios, it's their movie. The actors can't do anything on camera that the studios don't want them to do. It's their movie, not the actor's movie. If the studio doesn't want you as an actor wearing a red shirt in the scene, unless you're Daniel Day-Lewis or maybe Tom Cruise, but if they don't want you wearing a red shirt, you can't wear a red shirt. If they don't want you to use the word, I don't know, butter knuckle, then you can't say the word butter knuckle. I have no idea what that means. And if they don't want you doing a stunt, then you don't get to do the stunt. It's just that simple. It's their movie. They have all the, unless the star of the movie is also like the producer of the movie or something like that. It's the studio's movie. They have all the authority in the world. So yes, a studio and a filmmaker can absolutely say, no, you don't get to do that stunt. Now, Tom Cruise is also the producer, like at the active, not just in name only. He's the producer of these movies too. So he has a little bit more power than the average movie star will on that particular film. But generally speaking, no, the studio's got all the authority. All right. Last question today, guys, and we're out of time. The Walking Dead coming to an end writes, The Walking Dead will end with season 11. Not really. Not really. The Walking Dead will end season 11 with an extended 24-episode season to end in 2022. I know you love Ryan Hurst, and so do I. I'm explaining this because I think you're in the same boat. I stopped watching after season 3, but after all the buzz about how good season 9 and 10 are, I watched them, and wow, I haven't seen the last couple of seasons, just to be honest with you. I haven't seen the last couple of seasons. Much better. The new showrunner made it thrilling and shocking and emotional. Plus, Ryan Hurst's group of people is the villain. I didn't even know Ryan Hurst, who plays Opie in Sons of Anarchy. I didn't even know he was in Walking Dead. I didn't even know he was in it. Is the villains for the last 2 seasons. He's very scary MF in The Walking Dead. It's practically a new show, especially with scenes between Hurst, Reedus, and JDM, Jeffrey Dean Morgan. Here's the thing. Here's the thing. The news has come out that they're ending The Walking Dead, but they're not really. Because Norman Reedus, and I can't remember the name of the white-haired woman that he's, always with, they're going to have a spin-off show. So basically, it's just Walking Dead season 12 with a few new characters, right? But again, until this very moment, I had no idea Ryan Hurst was. Like I said, I finally tapped out on Walking Dead just a couple seasons ago. So I didn't even know Ryan Hurst was in it. The last couple of years, I had nobody ever told me Ryan Hurst was in Walking Dead now. I might have gone and checked it out if I had known that, but I did not know that. All right, guys, listen. There are still people to come from Michael McCain, Captain Brad, Shadow Jester, and a few others. Do not worry. We will start off the live questions part of the show tomorrow with your questions. So your questions are going to get answered first up on tomorrow's show. So don't worry about it. It will get covered there. But that is all the time that we have here for today's show, guys. Thank you so much for being here and making the John Campea Show a part of your day. Special thanks to Robert Meyer Burnett for being here, to all of you guys who are making this part of the show, and a special thank you to all you guys who sent in the live questions. Because number one, you gave us great fun things to talk about, but number two, you supported this channel while you did, and we thank you very, very much for it. Guys, don't forget, do the 4 main things. Stay smart, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and please take care of the people around you. That'll do it for me for now, guys. Thanks a lot for being here. My name's John Campea, and until next time, my friends, bye-bye.